Schizophrenia is not just a medical diagnosis. It's the unraveling of perception, a distortion of thought, a deep and isolating fear. It's the experience of hearing voices no one else hears, of seeing shadows no one else sees, of trying to cling to a sense of self that constantly slips through the fingers. The world feels unsafe, but worse, your own mind becomes unfamiliar. Logic is no longer a friend, and reality becomes something negotiable, bendable, even threatening. In the realm of psychology, we understand schizophrenia as a complex and often chronic mental disorder. It involves delusions, firm beliefs not grounded in reality. It includes hallucinations, auditory, visual, tactile, that come uninvited. Disorganized thinking, emotional withdrawal, and a loss of function often follow. And perhaps the most painful aspect is the social isolation. The stigma, the shame, the quiet places where people suffer unseen, unheard, unheld. And yet, long before psychiatry gave it a name, the Bible gave us a face. Mark chapter 5 tells us of a man who lived among the tombs, naked, cut off, forgotten, possessed. The people said, too wild for chains, too lost for sympathy. No one dared come near. He howled at night and bruised himself with stones. He wasn't just misunderstood. He was discarded. He had become the person people whispered about but never approached. The man with many voices. When Jesus stepped off the boat onto the shores of the Gerasenes, he didn't flinch at the sight of this man. The disciples may have stepped back, disturbed by the man's erratic behavior, his appearance, his intensity. But Jesus looked at him, not as a problem to be solved, but as a person to be restored. When Jesus asked for his name, the man didn't answer with his own, but with his torment. Legion, he said, for we are many. A Roman legion was 6,000 soldiers. What a metaphor for mental torment. Thousands of voices crowding a single soul, each one fighting for dominance. The man had lost his I and become a we. That is what schizophrenia can feel like, a fragmentation of identity, a cacophony within. But Jesus does something astonishing. He doesn't argue with the voices. He speaks to the person behind them. In our modern world, treatment for schizophrenia involves antipsychotic medication, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychosocial interventions. These are critical and life-saving. But many still live in the cracks, untreated, unseen. And even with treatment, the soul longs for something deeper, for meaning, for identity, for restoration. That's what Jesus offered. Not just silence of the voices, but the return of the self. Scripture tells us that after Jesus commanded the spirits to leave, the man was found sitting, clothed, and in his right mind. A sentence so simple yet so profound. The chaos became calm. The fragmentation became wholeness. He was clothed not just in garments, but in dignity. He was sitting grounded. He was finally at peace. There's a reason this story is recorded. Not to sensationalize suffering, but to remind us. There is no mind too broken, no soul too shattered, no heart too far gone for Jesus to reach. Psychology helps us understand the brain, but grace helps us restore the soul. And maybe that's what we need most in these conversations around mental illness. The courage to see people not as their symptoms, but as stories still being written. The man once called Legion became the first missionary to the Decapolis. He wanted to go with Jesus, but Jesus sent him back to tell his story. Because the one who was once the most feared became the most free. So when we speak of schizophrenia, let us do so not with fear, but with compassion. Let us hold space for the complexity, honor the medical journey, and offer the deep hope that even in the loudest mind, the whisper of love can still be heard. Jesus still steps into tombs today, and he still calls the broken back to peace. He restored. The voices of confusion, fear, and fragmentation are loud, but they are not the final word. There is a voice stronger still, the voice of the one who speaks peace to storms, both outside and within. If today you or someone you love is walking through a storm of the mind, know this. You are seen, you are not forgotten, and your story is not over. Healing begins not in perfection, but in presence, and Jesus is still drawing near.